Hujambo Espresso Talk Today community. It's Alma Robin here. Aquaba to the show. Welcome to the Espresso Talk Today show. Today, I am joined by Elder Mel for a real talk about connecting with our Black culture. And I have a celebration of culture challenge that I'm going to tell you about at the end of the show. You're going to have the opportunity to win an amazing book of even more amazing photographs called Black, a celebration of culture. Details later. Let's get to it. Hey, Mel.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
I am doing absolutely great. Thank you for asking. You know what? One of the reasons I'm doing great is I read this really interesting book. And you've heard the expression, it takes a village to raise a child.
Oh, yeah. Didn't Hillary Rodham Clinton try to make that one popular? But yes, long before her. Yes, I've
I
heard it.
think I think so, yeah. But anyway, in this book it says it's something really interesting. It takes a culture to sustain a village. Where there is no culture, there is no village, and the people will perish.
Wow.
So this made me think it's time for real talk. Real talk, y'all. Let's do it.
I love that. I think you're definitely right. This is definitely real talk stuff. So, what does that quote mean to you?
It means that we have to pay attention to our culture. First of all, we have to know it. That means we've got to, learn our history. We've got to accept our history. We've got to practice our history, and we've got to be our history. This is really, really important. The cultural experiences that we know of, we've got to, pass those along to our children, take those from our ancestors, grandparents, and parents, and bring them through. So I think the culture is very, very important. And in our culture, of course, it's the African and African American culture. So, that really got me thinking that we need to pay more attention to our culture and be more, what should I say, aware and sensitive to it, and gain more knowledge so that we know what it is.
That's a really, really, really good point. And it's interesting because over the summer, when I was visiting different countries, I saw a lot of exhibits about various aspects of African culture and African American culture. I'm particularly interested right now in Afrofuturism and Afro surrealism. And I think that one problem is that you're right, we don't know it, and therefore we don't appreciate it. It's like we appreciate other people's cultures more than our own. And I don't know if that's, a vestige of from slavery when we were punished for showing practicing our culture in any way, saying our language, our hair, our clothing, getting together, as we do, our food, all of that was punished. So maybe that's still a leftover from slavery.
Well, I think that's part of it, but I think the other part of it is we have to dig deep into the our education and make sure that we know what our history is. I mean, it's not easy because the books are not necessarily readily available. The information is not readily available. Those of us who can go should go to Africa and to other places where our culture is there and is practiced and been long standing. One of the things I've done is I've done a lot of reading on ancient Kemet. I don't know if you've heard of Kemet, but Kemet, the word means land of the blacks. That's now Egypt. When the Greeks conquered Egypt, Kemet, they changed the name to Egypt, but Kemet meant the lands of the blacks, the pharaohs, the pyramids, all the things you've heard about, the Sphinx, and all of that. Black people actually did. That's part of our history, part of our culture that we need to know about.
Yeah, what is it about the Kemet culture that's really attracting you?
Well, first of all, it was an educational institution. I mean, the education there was amazing. The Greeks, Aristotle, Plato, Pythagoras,
Those are all
Hippocrates.
Greeks.
Yeah, that's right. They went to Kemet to learn their trade, to learn
Oh,
philosophy, to learn medicine and all these things. We had already developed these things. This is part of our culture.
oh yeah. But it sure doesn't get attributed to African culture. Very interesting because we were just in Greece, and I didn't see a whole lot about, Pythagoras or Socrates talking about their time they spent in Egypt and what was it, Alexandria, or where did they go?
Well, mainly to just the educational institutions that were in, the Cairo area of Egypt.
Okay.
But when we were in Greece, I did see a lot of we've been, of course, to Egypt ourselves. I did see a lot of structures that looked just like what I saw in Egypt, which was ancient Kemet.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Are you talking about like the obelisk and yeah, what are you talking about
The
particularly?
obelisks, the pillars, the tall pillars, the lotus flower type, pillar, and a lot of just different things. This reminded me of when I was in Egypt.
That's very interesting. And it's also interesting to me too that, you've been, thinking about, the culture as well as the history and all of that. And one thing I've been trying to do to get closer to my culture, my African, my Black culture, whether that's Africa and Caribbean and all of that, I've been doing a lot of cooking. I love to cook. I love to read recipes and I love to try new recipes and see how flavors and spices work together. And I know when I was a child, my parents gave me this book, called the Africa News Cookbook. I still have it. Gosh, this must be, well, I won't even say how many decades ago that was. It's falling apart here because I've used it so much. And I started cooking jollof rice. I was using the recipe from Ghana, not the one from Gambia, but I could have done either. And then there was yassa that I started cooking, and of course plantains. Love some plantains. So cooking for me is a way of connecting with my culture. And it's not also the way the food is served. You're not just taking your plate and going and sitting in front of the TV set, but everybody's sitting around together and talking and eating with their right hand and talking about their day. I mean, to me, cooking and culinary, kind of pursuits really is a way to express the culture for me. So,
I think that's right. I think it's very good because cooking and the foods that we eat and the spices that we use and all of that is part of our culture. I know that my grandmother was also really involved in cooking, and she would make things that I don't even see now, like egg pie. I don't see that, but she
oh,
would
wow,
make egg
yeah.
pie. Yeah, she did also make potato pies, and everybody knows about potato pies. But her nickname was Bake because that's what she did. Peach pies, cobblers, all kinds of her own fruit cakes and that type of thing. So cooking to her was bringing forth her culture. She also had her mother who was a slave, but she was a slave who was
Enslaved.
enslaved. Yeah, she was the enslaved person who was a doctor and in the enslaved quarters. But she wasn't a doctor in the sense that she had a medical degree, but she doctored to the slaves. And so my grandmother brought that forth, that medical knowledge forth. And I didn't see a doctor until I was 16 years old
Wow.
because she
Wow.
had a remedy for every, ailment that I had and my brother had. So it was really an amazing thing. That's part of our culture. Some of that, I've passed on to my children.
I'm really glad you brought that up too, because the African cuisines from all the different various dozens of countries of Africa, are amazing. But there's also a cuisine made right in the United States by the enslaved population. I remember I looked up, and I have some recipes for cornbread. Cornbread, I mean, and it's made with lard and all of that. I mean, and I know it's not very healthy, but it really is delicious. Hoe cakes, another great recipe. Grits. There are all of these. recipes that the enslaved population made up and developed just from the foods that the ingredients that they had. And I remember watching, I don't know if you watched that, a series called High on the Hog,
I
and
did.
I almost wept watching
Mhm.
some of those episodes. And people said, don't watch that when if you're hungry, you know, and they're so right because it shows how much, from the Gullah population, from the enslaved population, um, people on plantains, like who was it? George Washington's chef. I think he developed this macaroni and cheese, which I mean is layered with butter and cheese and macaroni, and it just looked fantastic. So to think, actually, one of my favorite foods was created by an enslaved chef. So the food for me is really an expression of culture.
Yeah. I agree with that. And when we were in Ghana, one of the things we noticed were the vibrant colors, in the cloths and the clothes that were available, and we bought these, and they fit so well. I mean, it's just amazing. I don't remember buying any anything that I had to have a belt for. And everything just even though the colors you would say, well, these colors don't go together, they blended like you wouldn't believe. The dresses and the pants had, pockets that were practical and useful. And I think that we need to get back to our or get to our dress and dress more in our African colors and African materials. I even bought a hat that I love,
Yeah, I love that hat. That's a
made
great
out of
hat.
kente cloth. It's absolutely amazing. So I think that, to show how proud we are of our culture and our ancestors, wear our African dress wherever we go.
Yeah, but it's so hard, especially being here in Europe and in Belgium. When you're
Mhm.
talking about vibrant colors and patterns, and it's true, it's just beautiful. And I'm walking down the street in Belgium, everybody's wearing black, and except for then you see maybe an African person here or there, and they're wearing these beautiful colors and they look fantastic.
Mhm.
And I was always trying to be kind of inconspicuous to blend in wearing dark colors, no patterns, and all of that. Well, now I've started doing my Dashiki Fridays. So I wear my Dashiki every Friday, one of mine. And I wear cowrie shells too. I love how those look and feel. And you were saying about the kente cloth, that kente is so misunderstood because people think it's just one kind of pattern and one kind of color, but the different patterns represent something. And we
Mhm.
didn't know that until we went to Ghana. And Adinkra symbols. Wow, I just love the Adinkra symbols, like the Akuma, that's heart-shaped, that has been kind of appropriated into being a Valentine, but it's actually an ancient symbol that represents love and patience, not the romantic kind of Valentine love. So I really that to me is also a big expression of culture and what you wear, it's more than just adorning your body. It's actually saying something about who you are, and
It's saying that you are proud of who you are. You're proud of your culture. Another symbol, we're talking about symbols. I like the Sankofa symbol, the bird that's looking backward and moving forward, and that's our life. We're looking backward in our culture, our past, while we're moving forward onto more and more things. And we just have so many wonderful and what should I say, uh, wonderful people in our ancestral history that have done so many things that we don't know about, and we need to find out about those things and bring them forward. Have that part of the education. That you've heard about this book by Carter G. Goodson, The Miseducation of the Negro, in that he talks about the fact that if you don't know your history and your culture, you have not been educated. I don't care if you do have a PhD. That doesn't, that's important that you have that, and it's necessary that you have that. But your history and your culture, that's very, very important that so you know your identity.
right. He'd say, yeah, we become a quote unquote negligible factor, and almost even, it's possible that we could be exterminated because we don't know who we are. And we think we're just one single point of light, but everybody is more than that. But I do believe that's been really stripped away from us. But that there's a resurgence. There's really now, I see what you're wearing. I think you're wearing a kente cloth shirt, and
Yes.
I'm wearing a dashiki. I
Mhm.
think people are wearing stuff like that more. And maybe it's because some of Western society, white Western society, has decided that, oh, that looks really good, and that you see more white people wearing dashikis and all of that. I mean, I have no problem, with that, but we should be the ones respecting and showing off our culture and taking pride in our culture because that's what it is. I don't know how other people of other cultures view it, but that's how I see it. And oh, you know what? You once brought up too, the Negro National Anthem. Do you think that's a representation?
I do. That's really, really, it's our national anthem. The words were written by John Weldon Johnson, and his brother wrote the music. And yeah, I grew up actually with that as the national anthem. Whenever we had any events, we sang that first, and we stood up, and we were proud not only of the words but of having our own national anthem. So I think that every African American should know the national anthem. If you don't know it or know about it, you can always find it on the internet.
Absolutely. I grew up with it too, and I started hearing about it in the church. And to me, that was the anthem. And that's what we used as the anthem. So, I was thinking that, as we're going into November, there are two holidays that over the years I've grown to kind of reject. And I think they're very cultural holidays. One being, the first one being Columbus Day. And I
Mhm.
was thinking, why are we even celebrating Christopher Columbus? I mean, this to me is a pure representation of colonialism and greed and how he exterminated the native and indigenous populations. And I was thinking, this is not a day not a person to celebrate. He should not have a day. And then there's Halloween. And I know I was a big Halloween person. I love to go trick-or-treating. I love kind of the scary, spooky time. But that to me is well, it's they've changed the Dia de los Muertos or Day of the Dead, where we honor the people who have passed on and our ancestors, into being afraid of thinking of them as ghosts and being afraid of people who have passed on. And that's something I'm just going to let go of now. I think those are two real colonial vestiges that are in conflict with my culture, with how I want to express my culture and with my culture, because it was a way of almost exterminating my culture. So to me, I think October is the perfect time to do this.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think we've got to look at everything, and we've got to scrub it, and we've got to look at it, and what does it mean to us? How does it advance our culture? What is about our culture? How does it damage, or demean our culture? And, go from there. And you've done that with two holidays. We have to do that almost with everything, just because there isn't a lot of information available. We've got to make it available. We've got to dig for it and do what we have to do to get it. Asa Hilliard, in this book that I was reading, said the success of a group's identity depends on whether or not it can replenish its identity through education, rituals, and role taking. And
Mhm.
we've got to take that seriously. Our education, our history, and a role taking, what we do and how we portray ourselves and our ancestors, and how we honor them.
That's so true. That's so true. And how we honor our elders, who are a great source of knowledge and wisdom that can help us, to maintain our culture and to take our culture forward too, and understand why we do wear certain things and do certain things. I think our elders, I mean, in Ghana, I saw such a respect for the elders. In Belgium and in Western culture, I just don't see that. So but I think we have to have that, we as Black Americans, as Black people.
I think we do, and I think we have to realize and understand that our elders have so much information to give us, and and they have been, in a sense, kind of held back, releasing that information, that we've got to help them bring that forward because it's so rich and so powerful and so important to our existence.
Yes, and I mean they've been held back. I think unfortunately, we've kind of put them into a corner of insignificance that, well, you don't understand how to use the internet, you don't understand all these modern things. But as you were saying, your grandmother taught you about kind of about medicine and about healing and health and nutrition. I mean, there's so much information and so much wisdom there that we have to make sure to not I mean, to pull them out of that corner and to sit down and have a talk with them because I think we would learn so much. I know that I really have actually. So,
Yeah, and they have so much, our elders have so much to offer in terms of not only our history and our culture, but us as a people, our
mm,
respect for ourselves, our honoring ourselves. And one of the things that was really interesting when we were in Ghana, that we learned, that most people wear, when there's a funeral or memorial service for a person, they
mhm.
wear white, as the color for the mourning, and they
Yes.
wear, black basically for celebrations and things like that. And that was
Well, it
it's
was
just
white for the older for if an older person
if an
passes away.
older person, yeah, if an older person was, of course, if a younger person, it was black and red. And but just generally, wearing white, it's something that's an occasion where a person, you're mourning and that type of thing. It's just the opposite of what we do in, at least we've done, in America as African Americans. We wear black generally, to mourn, when it's just the opposite. We should be wearing the white to mourn. I
Yes,
thought that was really quite interesting and insightful. I didn't know about that.
that's very insightful. I really didn't know about that either. And when I did I did attend a few funerals after that. I did wear white and I did wear the black and red together because those colors mean something. It's not just black, it's not just red, but you really have to get a balance of black and red. And that to me meant so much.
Mhm.
So no, I think the trip to Ghana and I've been to Senegal twice too, very, very insightful and instructive, and I learned so much. And I
Mhm.
actually ate yassa. Oh, wow. Now that is one of my favorite African meals, my favorite West African meals, I should say. And it's everybody sitting around a large bowl, eating with only their right hand and talking and the elders go first and the children are there too and you're really sharing a single large meal that's been made and it was such a beautiful just uplifting experience. I just won't ever forget that. So it wasn't just the food but it was a whole experience,
It was the
as a family.
experience, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I had kind of an experience. We went to the castle in Ghana, the castle where the enslaved people were, put on boats and took the Atlantic trip to which is now the United States, and became enslaved people. And there, the it was like a, what should I say, a door that they went through, and they called that the door of no return. It was, it was just amazing. As you go through that door, the door of no return is you're not coming back. But what they've done now is on the other side, they have the door of return for those who have returned to Ghana, to Africa, to their roots and all of that. And they're saying, you survived. It's amazing that you were able to survive such an experience. Your ancestors, your grandmother, your grandparents, your great grandparents, they survived and they came back. We're so happy. We're kind of dancing. We're very, very,
Yes, right.
yeah, yeah,
It was such a welcoming, yeah, experience. Yeah, yeah, that wow, you survived and welcome back, brothers and sisters.
yeah.
Yeah,
They said, "Welcome home.
yeah.
It's your home.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome home." And we got names.
Right,
Your
right. Yeah,
name.
that was another experience too about, naming is part of the culture too.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah, which is why I've kind of, as people may know, been adopting the Amabuabosa name. So, which to me feels very real, feels very authentic for me. So, yeah, and you have an interesting name too. It's not just Mel.
No, it's Melanese, and I've come to learn that part of the name comes from melanin, which is, the hormone, I guess not hormone actually, is in our bodies, which is, makes us the color that we are, brown or black or whatever. The coloring is melanin. And melanin means, of course, black. And so Melanese, I've come to learn that that's my mother, who died when I was very young, came up with that name, and that's part of it.
Wow, that's amazing. That is really amazing. That must mean so much to you too, to know
It
that.
does. It does because it's indicative of who I am.
Ah, wow. Wow, I just love how powerfully you said that too. Right, because it's who we are. And there's been so much of a denial of who we are, you
Mhm.
know. And so it's time to stop that. And unfortunately, I have finished my espresso. So it may be time to stop our real talk for now. But I have this idea for October. You know, uh, Forget about Columbus Day. Uh, do what you want to do with Halloween, but maybe having a celebration of culture challenge. What do you think?
I'm
That.
in. I think that's great. We've got to not only appreciate our culture, we've got to know what it is. So yeah, and celebrate it, because it's who we are.
It's who we are. Yeah, and to celebrate that every day. I'm thinking 7 days. So, you know what? I think I will talk about that in the outro, after we finish our real talk. But I think this would be a great way to welcome in fall, to celebrate the equinox that has just passed, and to celebrate our culture.
Well, count me in.
Okay, you're on. This has been a great conversation, Mel. A great real talk.
Thank you. I love real talk because we get real.
We sure do. And oh, can I just hear that quote one more time?
Sure. It says, as I said, we all know about it takes a village to raise a child. But this one says it takes a culture to sustain a village. Where there is no culture, there is no village, and the people will perish.
Wow. Wow. I mean, at first I was thinking that's a bit overstated, but I don't think so. Not at all. Not at all. So thank you for finding that and for sharing that. Really powerful. And I look forward to our next real talk.
So do I. Real talk, always real talk, y'all.
Okay. I'll see you later then.
Bye.
Bye. Jumbo Espresso Talk Today community. Yes, I have finished my espresso, but there is a bit more to say. We hope that you enjoyed this real talk show about connecting with our culture. We've talked a lot about what we're doing to connect with our culture. I loved Mel's activities that she's involved in, and she's so right about the Negro or the Black National Anthem by James Weldon Johnson. It's a real example of Black culture that's uplifting and empowering every time I hear it. I hope that you've listened to it. Remember what I said, I really love cooking for my heritage. I'm going to post some of my culinary delights on Instagram, and I hope that you enjoy them. Yes, I will include the recipes too. October is coming. As a kid, I always associated October with a school holiday, Columbus Day, and of course, there's Halloween. Now, I don't celebrate or commemorate these days anymore. No, it's not because I can't go trick-or-treating anymore, or because I don't need a day off school because I'm not in school anymore. I don't recognize Columbus Day for obvious reasons. Why would I celebrate the life of a colonist who killed, raped, and stole from so many native and indigenous people? Okay, yeah, I just won't do it. about Halloween. Oh, by the way, and he wasn't a great explorer either, so he didn't even have that going for him. About Halloween, I prefer to celebrate Dias de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, which is a day that honors the people who have passed away, and it remembers our ancestors and welcomes them to our table to connect. That just sounds beautiful to me. I don't like to think of dead people turning into zombies and wanting to eat our brains. No, but I do like thinking about and remembering people who have passed away because they still just stay a part of us. And depending upon your belief system, they still have an influence in our life. Now, we have a surprise for you. I kind of told you about it a little bit at the beginning, but it's still a surprise. This October, we're going to have a celebration of culture challenge. In this challenge, we will all do activities that connect with our culture. Each of us will do the activity that they find best for their culture. The challenge is going to start on Monday, October 3rd and end on Sunday, October 9th. So what do? You're going to do some activity that honors your culture. And then you're going to tag Espresso Talk Today on Instagram because I want to see what you're doing. So what are cultural activities? Well, like I do, cooking or wearing cultural clothing, like I mentioned the dashiki, or jewelry, dancing, making or wearing jewelry, painting a picture, singing a song, listening to your elders, visiting a museum, anything. Just remember to tag me at Espresso Talk Today and tell me what you're doing. I'm going to be there too, every single day, doing something for my culture, something different. I hope that you'll be there too. Another surprise. They're kind of connected. We're going to have a lottery for everyone that sends a picture every day of the challenge. You're going to send 7 pictures then, at least 7. You will be automatically entered to win a copy of the iconic book, Black, A Celebration of Culture. This really is a beautiful book with over 500 black and white photographs, and they are amazing photographs, celebrating black culture throughout American history, from Jesse Owens to Barry Bonds to Ella Fitzgerald to Halle Berry. And this book could be yours. So get ready to start the Celebration of Culture Challenge on Monday, October 3rd for a full week of cultural activities. This is going to be so much fun. And you don't have to end on Sunday, October 9th. That's when the challenge ends, but you can keep this going every single day. Remember to tag Espresso Talk Today. I can't wait to see how you celebrate your culture. Thank you so much for joining me and Mel on this real talk about how we connect with our culture, and I just really appreciate you showing up this week and every week. Please remember that you can also show up or follow us on Instagram at Espresso Talk Today. There's a lot more content about black culture and history and current events, racism, yes, we got to talk about it, and wellness that you can find there. If you like the page, then we hope that you'll follow us. And by the way, I would be very interested to know if you celebrate Halloween, and if so, why and how. Same with Columbus Day. Do you celebrate it? Why or why not? No judgments, no criticisms, no boycotts. Just talking and listening. We are amiable intellectuals who are curious about everything. So bring it all. You can contact me on Instagram at Espresso Talk Today, or you can send me an email at team@espressotalktoday.com. I read and answer all emails, every single one, so don't be shy, just say it. We hope that you'll join us for the Celebration of Culture Challenge beginning Monday, October 3rd. And remember, now more than ever, strength, soul, and reparations. Ashe.